What is going on, community? What is going on, people of Earth? I am TJ, aka Flash by Night. Welcome back to the channel and welcome back through my walkthrough overview of Jed MacKay's Moon Knight run. As I said before, I want to touch on some highlights, some things I find important, and some things I just like about this run. But before we get too deep into issue number 2, I do want to get to a thing I skipped from issue number 1, and that is the idea that Khonshu has imprinted on Mark's brain, for lack of a better term, having been touched and resurrected multiple times by this supernatural being or deity, has changed Mark's brain in unexpected ways. So as we get into issue number 2, we have this young man being chased down by a bunch of senior citizens, being violent for an unexplained reason. And when he asks them why they're doing it, all of them at the same time say the same thing: because we want to sport for the hell of it. Then we cut to the midnight mission where Mark and his new assistant slash newly turned vampire Reese are having some small talk, but also going over the fact that these attacks have been happening for the past 3 days, and they're trying to put together a pattern and hoping that no one gets seriously hurt. That's when the young man from before busts in the door and asks for Moon Knight's help. Technically, he asked for the freaky guy, but one name is as good as another, right? So Mark brings him in, starts to patch him up, introduces himself as Mr. Knight, and Reese tells Mark that she's seen him around and that his name is Soldier. What we also learn is that all the elderly people are from Soldier's building, including his mom, and that's the main reason that he didn't fight back and he ended up getting hurt so badly. And side note, for a conversation later, Reese does see blood on Soldier and she has to leave because the scent is getting too strong for her to resist and she doesn't want to hurt it. Being that his mom is involved, Soldier, or Terry as we get to know him later, accompanies Mr. Knight to his building where they come across this janitor named Holly. And when Terry says, "Excuse me, Holly," Holly tells him, "No problem, sport," which Mr. Knight immediately picks up on. While Terry goes to get his gun, Moon Knight turns around to confront Holly because he picked up on the sport part, and Holly meant for Moon Knight to pick up on the sport, and he reveals everything to Moon Knight. He tells Moon Knight that for some reason his sweat can hypnotize people, make people do what they want, so he's been poisoning the building's water with his sweat. That is disgusting. 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 In order to affect the older people, to get them to cause a ruckus, to get Moon Knight to come to that building, because Holly is being paid by an unknown third party to attract Moon Knight there to try and hurt him and break him. And while it took a little longer, even Terry succumbed and came out with his gun to threaten Moon Knight, and that's when Moon Knight hit Holly with a proposition. Moon Knight invited Holly to share his sweat with him and form a connection to see if he could control Moon Knight. But Holly has no idea what he's getting into. He's feeling himself a little bit. He thinks he's a little bit stronger than he is, and he doesn't know what I told you earlier about Moon Knight's brain being altered by Khonshu. And as soon as Holly's sweat touches Moon Knight, Holly is engulfed mentally in this darkness. He tells Holly as many brains as he's touched, he's never touched one that is truly alien. And in the darkness, the light starts to open up. Mark is monologuing about man first coming out of darkness and the moon providing the only light in the dark. And as Holly finally sees light he can reach towards, it is not normal light. It is Moon Knight, all in his face. One other thing I failed to mention throughout these first 2 issues, but I'm probably going to mention a few more times throughout this run, but the art by Alessandro Cappuccio is amazing. I'm going to miss his art whenever we get the new Moon Knight run. Whenever this run ends, I'm going to immediately miss this kind of illuminated art style that Cappuccio has brought to this book. And as you see here, Moon Knight is mentally taking Holly down to the depths of his soul. He has him wrapped up and is basically using this change in his brain as a weapon. And by the time we come back to the apartment, we see Holly left with something he'll never recover from. Once they get back to the midnight mission and everybody is patched up, everybody's good to go, Mark asks Terry to leave so that he can have a talk with Reese and he can apologize for the situation that he put her in earlier with the blood. But he does tell Reese that he understands her. He understands being changed to something that you don't fundamentally understand, but as you get an understanding of those changes, you can turn those changes into an advantage, into a weapon to take down your enemies. And while Reese doesn't go as far as the take down your enemies part, she understands what Mark is trying to get at. But as they are wrapping up and we are wrapping up, you can see Hunter's Moon on the outside stalking Mark, stalking Moon Knight for their ultimate confrontation. And that was issue number 2 of Moon Knight. Again, a pretty good issue. We get to know a little bit more about Jed MacKay's idea of Moon Knight. We get a visualization of the changes that have taken place in Mark's brain thanks to Khonshu. We won't touch on that a whole lot, but further down the line, that does come back up. We're kind of figuring out that Reese is a mainstay character, but this isn't the last time you see Terry either. And also, we get our first hint at Jake Lockley and Stephen Grant. And lastly, pay attention to the fact that even inside the Midnight Mission, even with the people that he's working with, and this is going to stay consistent, he never takes off his mask. In a few issues, we'll get an explanation for that, but I believe that is really important for things that happen down the line and will make whatever happens to Moon Knight hit that much harder. I hope you enjoyed yourself. I hope you saw something you liked. If you did enjoy yourself, go ahead and hit that like button. And if you want to keep up with me, keeping up with Moon Knight, hit the subscribe button, hit that notification bell. Of course, feel free to leave comments. But as we always do at this time, love yourself, love others, and I will be back in a flash.